And I know
we are bad at our job.
well, I know, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Am I not supposed to say that?
I'd be real bad if I just gloss over
real
it.
bad,
Yeah.
not just average bad.
And
Live from the Injured on the Go Just Call Mo studio.
It's a blast!
It's Orlando's own Tom and Dan.
welcome to A Corporate Time with Tom and Dan. I'm Tom.
I am Dan. We are live on Twitch. We are live on YouTube. We'd love it if you come hang out in the chat room. You can search for everything on our social medias at Tom and Dan Live, and we'd like it if you do so. We have been putting a lot of time and effort into our social media, and it is doing absolutely no good, but we're wasting our time doing it.
Yeah.
So come over there and waste time with us.
Yeah.
Waste time with us. You know what? I would like to commend my fearless business partner, Tom Van, for doing a video of us running in the rain from Publix, and it's getting pretty good engagement.
That's all you have to do is run in the rain.
Run in the
I
rain.
knew it.
Yeah, running in the rain.
So we'll do some more social media.
Yeah, we have to.
Yeah.
Everyone
Do we
has
have to. I don't.
What's
think
interesting is there's more content out there from everybody. Every person is putting out content, and none of it is valuable. Absolutely none of it is valuable.
No, it isn't.
Okay, so I don't even know how this happened, but this is super, super cool. I believe it's obviously a connection to our very good friend Tuttle, Patrick. He's everybody that knows our show knows Tuds.
Yeah.
And knows that we love him. He's the #1 stunt boy in radio of all time, as far as I'm concerned.
Hold on, well, not of all time.
He's still doing it.
No, he doesn't
When
really
you
do it that
retire,
much.
you cannot. He's still
Yeah.
doing it. LeBron is still playing. Patrick is still playing.
Yeah, but that's like
The only thing that'd be better is if Tuttle had a son and he was able to tase his son's balls like
No.
LeBron of stunt man.
That's like Frank Gore is technically like top 5 running backs.
Frank
of all
Gore's
time.
son is in the league.
Yeah, he may be out already.
Yeah, I think he is out,
But,
yeah.
but there's just time spent in. It's not necessarily talent or what he accomplished.
I believe Tud's got more time spent. He's
No,
got more
but
time in.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's like you can't. How are you going to compare him to Barry Sanders?
I think Tuttle was inflating his anus up until 2004, or excuse me, 2024.
Let's do some weird.
It is Weird Job Wednesday. The people they like the AI songs that we do sometimes, but they also prefer when I do a real song. Today I have a real song. I've been in a country mode lately. You can look at me and tell that I'm basically a mountain man.
Okay.
So I did a little parody. Let's do it. Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to work weird jobs. Don't let them be streamers and OnlyFans sluts, drilling their axe wounds and gaping their butts. Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to work weird jobs, 'cause they'll all work from home with the door shut, they'll groan. They'll do anything for just one more sub. That's a subscriber, not a sandwich.
All right.
There you go. That's a subscriber, not a sandwich for all you old people.
On Zoom with us, Steve Oleksy. He is the former Stanley Cup champion.
Yeah, buddy.
And candidate for mayor of Edgewater,
Yeah,
Florida.
yeah, I would say the next mayor of Edgewater.
How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing well. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for having me. And I'm glad that you clarified the sub because I was lost on that.
Yeah, a lot of people are.
I apologize.
A lot of people are.
You know, Tuttle got you into this, so
Yeah.
if
and he's
anything,
going to get you out. He's going to get you out somehow.
So, Steve, first, let's talk about you running for mayor of Edgewater. How'd that come to pass?
It was it was crazy, but we moved to Florida. My wife and I moved to Florida 4 years ago. We settled in Orlando, knew we wanted to be close to the beach, went all over the state, happened to find New Smyrna, Edgewater. One of my best friends has lived up here for a long time, so we've been visiting. And just seeing the potential in Edgewater, and I think, the most important decisions for Edgewater are going to happen in the next 4 years. I wanted to be involved in some capacity, and a lot of uncertainty around that position led me to throw my name in the hat and see what happened.
So you mentioned your wife. Your wife is Brooke Hogan, Hulk Hogan's daughter. And this is kind of where the tie-in of Tuttle, and I'm sure with the Buffalo Sponge, and I'll put it all together. So, she had always lived on the West Coast, and what made you move over to Edgewater? As far as like, it was just a town that you like happened to like, you visited, or tell us why you moved to Edgewater.
Yeah, so my wife is obviously a big fan of this coast. She grew up on the other coast. She's lived that life. She likes this coast a lot better. My best friend has lived in New Smyrna for close to 10 years. So I was coming up here very, very often. With us living in Orlando, my wife has her real estate license, knows and understands the state like the back of her hand. We drove all over. I'm telling you, we spent months. We stopped in every little city. There's no place like Edgewater, New Smyrna in the state of Florida. I call it the last slice of paradise. And it was pretty easy to convince myself to move to Florida, and it was pretty easy to convince her to move to Edgewater.
Wow. Oh, man, my wife's got her real estate license. We should hang out.
Oh, yeah, you're basically the same guy. You know?
Yeah.
Basically the same man.
Yeah. Steve, okay, we'll come back to all this, but I want to kind of go back to your NHL playing career because you won the Stanley Cup. You also, there's a weird factoid. The first time you ever drank alcohol was from the actual Stanley Cup. Is that true?
That is true. That's the first and only sip I've ever had of alcohol, and I'm not sure I'm going to win another one. So I think that's going to be my last.
Hold on. Stop everything. You cannot be a mayor of a Florida town and not drink alcohol. I used to work for the mayor of DeLand, Florida. I was the front office. I was the switchboard operator for DeLand, Florida, and I used to have to hold calls because Mayor Rigby at the time would be, tipping on a little bit of grandma's cough syrup, if you know what I mean.
Well, listen, maybe I'm the change then, but
no, that's good, man.
Yeah, I can. And I went to school at Lake Superior State, so anybody listening that knows about Lake Superior State, if I can make it through that without drinking, I think I can go through this mayor situation without drinking.
All jokes aside, I think it's pretty amazing to have a politician that is not a drinker. I think that's an awesome thing to see. That would give me immediately more confidence in you because you're not, you're in it. You're a health person. It seems like, you're an athlete. You still are. I'm sure you still take care of yourself.
So
try to take care of myself. And, that was one thing when you move through the athletic world. I mean, that's such a part of the culture, right? And the reason guys loved me is they always had a designated driver. So,
right.
It probably extended my career longer than it should have. Gone,
well, you make better decisions when you're not blasted too. So it's just a good thing, man. All across the board, it's a good thing.
So, Steve, I'm curious, playing in the NHL, you won the Stanley Cup in 2006. So it was a little bit of a different time in the culture. Things have changed a little bit, but back then, what was the culture like in the NHL? You speaking of like taking care of your body and like, you got the top athletes in the world. But it seems like hockey, for whatever reason, and maybe this is just a stereotype, is just like the athletes are a tougher individual and not necessarily like you see all these athletes nowadays with the regiment, the health regiment, the diet, and the discipline, and I'm sure it's like that in hockey, but in my mind I'm like they're just a bunch of real men that, speaking of drinking, that drink and just fight.
That's a trope. Sure.
That's a big part of it. You're dating me. I know I haven't shaved, but it was 2016, not 2006.
Sorry.
That's okay.
We can't read. Neither of us can read. And Tuttle should have told you that, but apparently,
yeah. You're right. I glazed that. Yeah, it wasn't 20 years ago. You look young as hell, Steve. But sorry about that. Yeah, it was 2016.
Well, I appreciate it, but yeah, to your point, I mean, I was kind of that transition, right? Early on in my career, it was like you just show up to training camp and you get in shape. At that point, you work out a little bit in summer, but it wasn't overly serious until you got to camp. And then, now you look at hockey and it's like, guys are eating alfalfa sprouts and, everybody can lift 400 pounds and, it's the recovery methods and everything has changed so much. So at that time when we won it, you would still have the guys drinking, shower beers after every game. And I'm not going to go into names, but, I played with a couple guys that always had three of them waiting in the shower for them. And, it was kind of that the guys who took it serious were super serious, but you still had some of that old school mentality. And now it's been a complete shift, where, guys are eating or drinking protein shakes instead of the beers in the shower.
Yeah, I mean, and is hockey from the outside, I love watching sports. We always have something on, whether it's baseball or the Magic or whatever, and we dabble in hockey as well because it's just such an exciting sport. Is it as grueling as we think it is? Because it looks just like on your body, on your joints, is it as difficult to stay healthy in hockey as it seems like from a non-hockey player?
Yeah, I think it's probably tough for a viewer to fully understand, what your body goes through. And, when you talk about skates, you have the blades, you have the edges, and that's a lot of resistance on your hips. You see a lot of hip injuries in hockey, especially with goalies, but groin injuries and hip injuries. And this is one thing. I do a lot of stuff in the youth sports side of things as well. And when you really break it down, I mean, you're using the same muscles from the time you're, 6, 7 years old all the way through, right? So that's a lot of wear and tear. And then, the way we skate, it's not like basketball or it's not, baseball where you can stand straight up. When you skate, you're hunched over pretty much the entire time, right? And you have your knee bend, and it is a lot of stress on your knees, a lot of stress on your back. And then you mix in the physical part of that, right? So
Right.
you're doing that all while guys are trying to take your head off. And,
Right.
you know, we talked a little bit about this with the last question, but just the training methods and the recovery methods have changed so much too. Just the pace of the game is so much faster, and just to keep up the wear and the tear on the body is you can't tiptoe around it anymore. You're going full speed all the time, not just in games but practice as well.
Steve, you grew up ice skating, correct? Like
I did.
since you're a baby, right?
I did. I started young. I was fortunate enough to have, an older brother. My father played when he was younger as well. And then being from Michigan, you know, you get those cold winter months and the lakes and ponds freeze, and it becomes very easy and very accessible to hop out there. So that's kind of how I grew up from the age of 2.
God, that's so
So
cool. Age of 2.
So
Wow.
okay, there's a lot of similarities between hockey and soccer, and especially with the athletes. And because
Hockey players don't flop as much. I want to be on record and say I've never seen a hockey player flop.
in the fact in there's some other sports like American football where you can find super superior athletes and then teach them to do a position, right? Like they do this on the offensive line all the time, even like tight ends, quarterbacks harder, obviously.
Just fit them where you need the
yeah.
superior athlete.
But you take superior athlete size and body size and what they are, and then you can kind of teach them a position. But you can't do that with hockey and soccer because there has to be an element of learning young either to skate or to kick with both legs.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying?
ambidextrous.
Yeah. And then if you get beyond a point where you didn't learn that young, it can't be taught old, or you're such a disadvantage.
You're way behind.
You're way behind. They can never catch up. So have you experienced in the NHL any hockey players that started skating later in life, or does that not exist?
Yeah, it's very hard to catch up, and I say this about Florida, right? When you look at Florida, me being from Detroit, I mean, we're taking it serious at, I just mentioned we're skating at 2, 3 years old, and we're getting quality coaching by the time we're 6, 7 years old, and Florida's a little bit behind, right? So that's why a lot of Florida athletes, especially in the hockey space, struggle to kind of catch up later on in life. The one thing I will say about hockey is you will see some guys that transition over to ice hockey later where, they may have played roller hockey or some sort of hockey, and they've developed their skill sets and skating a little bit. And then it's an easier transition to hockey. But as far as, skating and starting skating late, if you're not into it at 4 or 5 years old, it's very, very, very challenging to catch up. And nowadays too, the sport of hockey has changed so much where everything is skating, where it's not like the old days where you'd have a guy who's, 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", and can't really skate, but they're big and they're tough and they're physical. That part of it is pretty much gone, where now everybody has to be able to fly and super good on their edges and a great skater. So it's becoming harder and harder for somebody to start late and try to catch up.
Gotcha. So skating is more important. It's kind of like with all sports. it like even American football where athleticism and being fast is now kind of taking the place of just the gigantic strong guy that's tough, because hitting is becoming less prevalent and they're trying to protect the player's health.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, players get smaller and faster, and you're seeing that in the NHL too, right?
For sure. And if you look at it, we just had our All-Star game, a charity event back home in Detroit for the summer league I run, and we had a guy, Cole Caulfield, from the Montreal Canadiens, and I think he may be 5'6" or 5'7",
Wow.
and scored 50 goals, right? Those guys are more common in the space now. The little guys that can fly all over, they're little water bugs. And I think he was kind of one of the guys who was on the front end, him, and there's also a guy, Rocco Grimaldi, who played in the NHL a little bit, but they were that first kind of new wave of that, 5'6" to 5'9" guy, but gets the job done. Where, before it was always like, hey, we can teach a guy who's 6'3" how to skate, and that's not the case anymore.
So, Steve, I'd be bad at my job if I didn't ask you about your wife. And I know
we are bad at our job.
Well, I know, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Am I not supposed to say
but
that?
I'd be real bad if I just gloss over
real
it.
bad,
Yeah.
not just average bad.
And so your wife is Brooke Hogan. You married into the Hogan family. How is that? Because it seems
That's like
tough
American
to
royalty, man.
navigate, because like obviously there's so much information out there, and obviously a lot of us have seen the Hogan documentary and like just all this stuff.
It's a big name. Yeah.
So how was it marrying into that family? Is it tough to navigate because of the publicity that comes with it? What's your experience?
My experience is, I mean, that's the biggest reason I fell in love with my wife, right? She doesn't look at herself in that way at all. Very, very humble, very, very down to earth, more so than anybody else I've ever been involved with, and you wouldn't necessarily expect that. And I think that's where so many people put a false narrative and tell a story that they don't know. And I think that happens a lot. And seeing it from the back end is very, very eye-opening. And then, you talk about the media and the press and everything like that. I think the one thing is going through a little bit in the hockey space, but hockey and wrestling and, the family name is so different. It's hard to trust anything in the media. And, I think that's where, we know what's going on behind the scenes. We know the real stories, and to see the stories that are put out there that don't match up to the real story, it's very hard. It's very hard. And, I think as you move through this and as we move through everything, you talk about the Netflix documentary, and I think the people and the fans and the true fans at some point, they deserve to hear the full story and the truth. And media is a lot more influenced than people think. And I think that's one thing that's really kind of opened my eyes going through this situation.
Yeah, I've only met her twice because of radio and working up at, Clear Channel here in Orlando. And I can tell you with 100% certainty that both times I met her, one of the absolute kindest and nicest person you would ever meet. And this is when she was doing a lot of singing and a lot of performing and stuff like that. And she was just like really, really kind.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody around us say anything bad about her. She is just awesome. Like, truly.
Yeah, almost a detriment to herself and us. She's so nice that
very nice.
That some people tend to take advantage of that, and everybody's always playing an angle. That's the hardest part.
I've seen your wife mention it on other media and about the Hogan documentary, and she basically has said, like, you could tell any story you want to about a person.
People do. People do. That's where we're at now.
And it reminds me always that any documentary I ever watch ever, I'm like, well, this is one side of it.
Take it for what it is, I guess.
Yeah. Like, and so it's, I don't think there exists a documentary. Maybe there is, but of both sides of the whole truth. Because it's probably hard.
It wouldn't sell.
It wouldn't sell.
Nobody wants to hear the gray area documentary where you get all of the real details from everybody, because you'd have no angle, you'd have no edge.
So, Steve, going back to politics and you running for mayor of Edgewater, Daniel did her little research, and I know, like, obviously, we're not talking ill of any other candidate out
No.
there, but
We wouldn't do that. We have no dog in that fight.
Daniel yelled at me. He's like, "You know who the last mayor of Edgewater is?" And I'm like, "Who?" And he's like,
I hope this is right.
yeah, this could be wrong in the internet, but he's like, apparently it was an 18-year-old, the last person who ran for mayor,
Elected in 2022, he was 18.
Yeah, elected. He was 18 years old, and his name was Diesel Dupree.
Yeah.
Or
Depew.
Depew. Diesel Depew. 18-year-old mayor of Edgewater, elected in 2022.
That sounds like a Weekly World News headline, right?
I was like, what?
Diesel Depew, 18 years old, mayor of Edgewater. It doesn't even sound real.
So is that the person you're running against?
That is, and honestly, what's crazy is I've had a number of conversations with him. He's very, very, very dialed in. Politics has been a big piece of his life. Growing up, and I respect him for that. And I think he is definitely looking to move further in politics, and regardless of what happens, my thought, his thought, like everybody that's in this race genuinely cares about Edgewater, regardless of what the citizens put out there on Facebook. Everybody has a platform now, but everybody really cares about the city, and I think everybody recognizes that there's important decisions that the city's facing. And I think one of the things that I've really been trying to put out there and making people aware of is one person's not going to change this, and it's going to take all of us working together. And hopefully I can just be a piece of that, working with the things he's done the last 4 years, continuing things, trying to make things better. And I think that's one advantage I have is through my playing career, through my hockey career, I've lived in so many different cities, and you see things that work, you see things that don't work, you understand, things that may be able to be done better. But at the root of it, we chose Edgewater for a reason, and we want to keep it, the way it is, and what makes Edgewater so special. Well, putting a little spice on it, and making it a place where the people at Edgewater can be proud of.
Is there a number one problem for Edgewater right now, in your opinion?
Yeah, flooding is a very, very, very hot topic here, and it's a very hot button issue here in Edgewater, but I think Florida in general, and in other places,
Orlando, we have that problem too.
Orlando, exactly. I went through it back home in Detroit, a number of years ago. I mean, we had record rainfalls, and the water levels were high. The water was up to my back door for 2 years. So it's a hot button issue here in Edgewater. I think that is a big part of it. I think, things like that, though, it's put out there, people latch onto it, and it's their easiest entryway into politics and, questioning people. Flooding seems to be, if you're not very well educated, flooding is your issue. That's going to get you to open that door and ask questions and try to hold people accountable.
Well, just off life experience alone, or the fact that you played in the NHL, won a Stanley Cup, are married to Hulk Hogan's daughter, like lots of different experiences.
You've seen some stuff. Yeah, you've seen some stuff.
Because I was,
and you're young, like you're not, what are you, 40?
Yeah, I'm 40 years old, and I say, I'm about 40, but I'm about 84 in miles traveled.
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Hey,
and
well, you don't look it, but I get what you're saying.
I was mentioning to Daniel as like, I'm 44, Daniel's 50, and now more than ever, like
he knows. Look at me.
When I was young, I didn't, give any credit to this because, you can't see it. But now I see where age and perspective and experience do count heavily towards being well-rounded.
It gives you a
adult.
perspective.
Yeah, it gives you a better perspective, and like just life experience that comes with age and experiencing all these different types of things.
And winning and losing, I think, is very important.
Yeah.
Like it's one thing, like you do know what it feels like to be on the forefront of both, and I think that's extremely important for, I think, a politician to know what it's like to try and get your agenda across and not have it go your way, but know that you got to do it again.
Oh, Steve, I want to ask you this real quick, because this brings up I've been seeing in sports as like there's more money infused into it, and sports athletes have become more professional, more business minded, and have I've seen lean towards like this is just a business, this is an entertainment business, and I have to be out for myself along with my team, because my team does well, that does better for my career.
But you're not beholden to the team.
But at the end of the day, yeah, like the team, it's a business for them as well. So I have to take care of my business. The team has to do their business. But it just becomes where it's a lot more business oriented than the fan wants it to be.
Right.
Because the fan wants all the players.
We want John Elway, right? We want Bronco for life. We want
but that's not realistic at all. But the fan wants something different than what it is. So I'm curious to you, like when you were in the NHL, how much business oriented was it per player towards like the actual player wanting to win for the team and just win for the city and do what we as a fan want?
So I'll tell you this. I deal with a lot of guys, the younger guys. I tell them it's a business on all sides, and it really is. And it's very, very hard, because obviously you want to win for the city, you want to win for the people around you. But there's also two types of athletes, right? There's the athlete who will win at all costs, and there's the athlete who they want to win if it happens, but if it doesn't, as long as I'm taken care of, I'm good, and I'll tell you, I've done a lot in my career to educate, guys moving forward. And one of the things I went to go play in Austria for a couple months after, towards the end of my career, one of my seasons. And it was the best hockey experience in my life, because over there, it is all about winning. It doesn't matter if you're 40 years old or if you're 14. If you're the best player, you're on the ice. If you deserve to be there, it doesn't matter who scores. There's no up and down. So over here, right? Like I was an up and down guy. I was, an NHL or an American leaguer most of my career. I could be gone at any day. So it's really hard to feel comfortable and confident. And what that does is that puts you in a position where you're not necessarily hoping for guys to not succeed or guys to get injured, but a guy like myself, that's where my opportunity comes in, So it develops and it creates a very negative culture in the sports world, because it is a business. And, seeing the other end of the spectrum, when I went over to Austria, it was like the sponsors, the GM, the owner, everybody was in there. When we won a game, it was nothing else mattered. And it was so cool to see how different it can be when it's strictly business and when it's about winning in sport. So it is definitely a business on both sides. And I think it depends on what kind of athlete you talk to. If it's, the guy who's a win at all cost, I don't care about the money. Or if it's a guy who's like, I'm here to make as much money as I can for me personally. And, there's a book called The Culture Code, and they actually break down how much the difference in salary between the guy who takes the shot and scores the points in basketball and the guy who passes the ball. And it's absurd. It's really cool. So that's a deep dive for you if you ever want to understand
Culture Code. I'm gonna write that down.
Well, who gets more? The guy who takes the shot gets the most, right?
Exactly. So what's the incentive for a guy to pass the ball, when
Right.
the game's on the line, right? So it's definitely different to look at it from a business standpoint, but it is a business on all ends. And you said it is the entertainment business. And I think I'll go on record and say I think sports are a lot more influenced than people think.
Yeah.
Well, the
I
problem
agree with
is
that.
I'm gonna miss it, Steve. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I'm not
Hey,
that
but you
good.
got paid. But you got paid. You got your bag.
Hey, it turns out the guy who misses the shot gets paid the least. So that's why I passed. Because
Well, you got traded. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
Steve, with in NHL, I'm curious too. When your experience with it seems like safety or wanting to be safe has always been looked down upon in the NHL. Like it started with like like I mean this is a little way back in the day, but like wearing helmets and other safety equipment and like protecting your face and like face shields and it was always like, hey, the old school guys were like, I'm not doing that
Yeah.
P word
We
stuff.
have that in the NFL now with the Guardian helmets. It's kind of
Oh,
going
you're
that
stupid,
way.
yeah. And I was curious to how much of that you saw in the NHL with like the old guard, like poo-pooing on safety equipment.
Yeah, I think they've overcorrected in all sports. I think a lot of that comes from rule changes. If you watch football, I can talk about hockey on a deep level, but if you watch football, everything's pass interference. You can't touch the quarterback now. It's completely changed the game, and the same things happened in hockey, right? Where I say this to a lot of people too when I get into the weeds on sports conversations. It's easier to over discipline than under discipline, and I think that's one thing where now with every fan has a platform, it's easier to hand out a 5 to 10 game suspension. I'll use a guy like Tom Wilson for example. He's a guy I played with, and I mean he hits like a Mack truck, and it's clean generally, but it's easier to suspend him than have everybody else, critiquing you and things like that, even though it may not warrant a suspension. And, when the overcorrection comes with protective gear, now everybody has to, I actually got grandfathered in. You had to have 25 games. My first year I had 28 games. You had to have 25 games to go no half shield. And I had 28 games. So I was able to wear no half shield my entire NHL career.
Wow.
Now everybody coming in has to wear a half shield. Now I just saw, I think they made neck guards mandatory as well, neck protection mandatory as well. They did it at the younger levels. Um, and people don't understand. I mean, as a player who's been playing 20, 25 years, when you're starting to wear different equipment and you have to do all kinds of different things, it definitely changes the way you play too.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
when you're having can you give the viewer, like we talked about this a couple of minutes ago, can you give us viewers a little bit of like the difference between you playing with no half shield or playing with no helmet, non-obstructed view, I'm guessing. Is it angles? Is it glare? Like what would be
The advantage or
yeah.
disadvantage.
So for me, and I talk about, I was kind of in that transition period. I fought a lot. One of the things is when you're wearing half shield, I mean, I have a number of cuts and scars from the minor leagues where your half shield comes down and it'll actually just take off the tip of your nose. It'll
Oh.
cut your face up. My hands, it messes up your hands. That's why you see a lot of the old enforcers and the tough guys go no half shield, right? Because it actually messes you up a lot more than no half shield. So there's that part of it. There's looking down, you're looking through your half shield at one point, and then you look down and it completely changes your perception and things like that. Playing with no half shield, I always found that I keep my head up a lot more too, right? You're not as protected, so you're a lot more aware of your surroundings, a lot more aware of what's going on. You end up protecting yourself a lot more than when you're protected by equipment.
You brought up fighting and you fought in the NHL a lot. I always wondered
I
if
fight with my wife a lot.
if
Very similar.
if hockey players spend any time training to punch, like as
That's a good
part of
question.
like and like even like hiring.
You want to know how to hit correctly.
Yeah, like if you get an MMA trainer or something, you just learn how to fight a little bit as to complement your game, because if that is part of it, like
Football players do ballet.
yeah, it's like, is that do players? Have you seen players or yourself trained at all in MMA and fighting because that's part of the game?
Yeah, and you talk about football players doing ballet. A lot of hockey players actually do figure skating as well, with the edge work and things like that. But on the
Yeah.
fighting side, yeah, I never fought in my life. I've never thrown a punch off the ice to this day. And I was looking around my first year pro. I signed a contract for like $400 a week at a low level, league in the ECHL. It's essentially double A baseball. And I looked around and I thought I had made it. I'm like, all right, I signed this contract for $400 a week. And I get to camp and there's 14 guys on the same contract. And I'm like, well, I'm not real good at math, but there's 4 guys coming down from the American League. There's only 7 defensemen on a roster, and we have 14 guys with the same contract. I have to do something to set myself apart. So there was this guy he was 6'7", 245
Woo.
from Czech Republic, and I knew him a little bit, and he asked me to fight, and I'm like, I laughed at him. I'm like, I've never really fought in my life. I fought a couple times in juniors, and then he asked me next shift, and for me, I just started fighting all heavyweights because I'm not supposed to win those. So as long as I make it through, I did good, and I had no idea what I was doing. And then later, my first year, I ended up going out to Idaho, and we had this gentleman by the name of Adam Huxley, and he's pound for pound and technically one of the best fighters. He fought all the heavyweights, and he was incredible. And he pulled me after practice. He kind of took me under his wing, and he was a big reason why I was out there. But he's like, "Hey, we're gonna hit the hand pads." And I said, "I don't even know what hand pads are." And he was super tied into the Diaz brothers. He used to play in Stockton, and that's where the Diaz brothers were from before MMA was the way it is now. But we used to hit the hand pads after, and he would teach me different grabs and different techniques as far as punching and, snapping your wrist to, I don't want to say this, but to do maximum damage when you do hit somebody. So it's the snap on the wrist, and he taught me a lot. But now that MMA is as big as it is, there's a lot more guys that are doing that training, and not even necessarily fighters, but just guys that are learning those techniques to be able to protect themselves if it happens.
Yeah, because I always see, like, when I'm watching NHL fights or whatever, I'm like, these guys, they're throwing good ass punches,
good-ass punches,
and they're
yeah.
both punching each other in the face at the same time. They're holding each
Which is
other's
impressive.
person.
It's very impressive to see
And I'm
two
like,
men just
"Goddamn."
wailing on
Yeah,
each other.
yeah, like these athletes are just punching, and it seems like they're pulling their punches a tiny bit because, like, one punch straight to the face should level the other player.
It's
So
like it's almost is it ceremonial in a way? Like, how do you gauge
Yeah.
how much to punch somebody?
because you're not there to like knock the person out, or are you?
No, you are. It's either, and that's one thing, when I was going through it, everybody, like, my nickname's Binky, right? So everybody back home knows me as Binky, and I come back home and everybody's from high school. It's like, "Oh my gosh, we never expected you to do that." And my brother's like, "You're a snap show." And even when I fought, I was never mad, but it's a mentality thing where it's either, you're getting knocked out or I'm knocking you out. And me fighting heavyweights early on in my career, I mean, I fought some very, very, very tough guys and some very big guys where if I wasn't engaged in that way, they could have done serious damage to me. So you can't tiptoe into a fight. You can't, it's not fake. It's not, I don't want to say it, but it's not wrestling where you're trying to protect the other guy. You're trying to, protect yourself. And, one guy, I had another guy, his name's Trevor Gillies. He was an NHL heavyweight, and he's like, "Wild man, you're not trying to punch the guy, you're trying to punch through the guy." So, and it really is like, that's how it is. But very much like MMA and hockey fighting, there's ways to protect yourself and make sure that you don't catch one straight on the button.
Well, Steve, thanks so much for taking the time with us today to talk about the NHL, to talk about you running for mayor of Edgewater.
Congrats on your campaign. I mean, I would say if I look, I'm a DeLand guy, so New Smyrna to me was a second home. Like going to the beach, Red Dog and everything around that area, like, was like something that we loved. And man, the way you carry yourself and the way that you speak, and I just man, kudos to Edgewater because I hope it goes well for you, man. Good luck with everything.
Well, I appreciate it. And I think the most important thing for, my wife and I too is, everybody asks my why. My why is we have 1.5-year-old twins. We're living in Edgewater forever. We're never moving from there. And I think through this entire process, I've just met so many incredible people through the community. And I think that's been, a blessing already throughout this process. And, having a chance to meet a lot of people that you can live in a city for, 10 years and not get to meet the people that I've met. So I'm very, very thankful for that. And are you still a DeLand guy?
Well, I mean, I still have friends and family there. I live in Orlando, obviously, now. But DeLand High, class of 94.
Okay.
I still love going back there. Tom's Pizza is still, in my opinion, the greatest pizza made. I love DeLand. I probably always will. And eventually, I'll probably end up there at some point, I imagine.
Yeah. My friend up here owns DeLand Eatery. So
Oh, right
that's
on.
why I asked.
Right on. Shout out to
So
DeLand
he's
Eatery. Very cool.
Yeah, so really cool. But thank you, gentlemen, for having me. And obviously, the connection of Tuttle is incredible. through this
I
entire
wouldn't say
process.
incredible. Okay, hold on a
Well,
second. But now we're going off the rails.
Yeah. How'd you meet Tuttle?
Yeah.
Steve.
So anybody who knows her story knows that Bubba the Love Sponge was like a second father to my wife, and some things that played out in the public, kind of separated that relationship for 15, 16 years. And then, we came together through, a lot of things that were going on in our personal lives. And, Bubba's been great to myself and my wife. And, he's really been, a life raft for me navigating, what you talked about, navigating a family that I stepped into late in the game. I didn't have the 30 years, 35 years beforehand. I've been involved with the family for 6. So Bubba's given me a good perspective. And, through that, I always saw this Tuttle on the show, and I was like, this guy's unbelievable, and I never had a chance to meet him. I had a chance to meet him briefly at the premiere. And then when it came out, I was running for mayor, which Bubba was one guy who he's like, Steve, he's like, you should do this for the community and, be a part of this great community. It came out that I qualified for mayor, and Bubba linked me and Tuttle up. Tuttle lives right across the street from us. So
that's
he's
crazy.
he's literally 3 minutes away. So I could hit a 9-iron to his house here. So, and that's what I talk about. I mean, it's such a special community, and it happened through the process of, running for mayor, and, Bubba and the whole, you see in the corner, Bubba Army. I mean, what he's created is kind of what community should be built on. I'm a big believer in that. He's brought so many people together, and very big. I was at a smoothie bar at the end of our street, and a gentleman comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, you look familiar." And I usually get, "Did you play hockey?" or, "Are you Brooke Hogan's husband?" And he goes, "Were you on the Bubba show?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, long time Bubba Army. I live here in Edgewater. It's great to meet you." So it's really something special, and meeting people like Tuttle, and who's introduced me to you two gentlemen, has been awesome.
Well, thank you, man. We really appreciate the time. And of course, we love Tuds. Tuds is, again, I'll say it again. He's the greatest stunt performer, even greater than my business partner,
Hold on.
who was a great stunt performer. You were very great.
I'll talk to Steve off the air.
Okay,
I'll
fair.
explain my background.
That's fair.
He'll see.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, Steve. Well, take it easy, and good luck with the campaign. And is voting next week? I don't even...
Early voting's open now.
Yep.
Okay.
Early voting's open now, and the process is happening right now. So get out there and do your due diligence. Thanks for the time, man. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve.
Oh, thank you, gentlemen.
See you, man. That was pretty damn cool, right? What'd you think of that? We are dipping our toe into politics, folks. We're kingmakers, I tell you. We're king. No, we're not.
The mayor of
We're not.
But it seems like a nice guy, and
very nice.
What there's a couple things I didn't want it because it was awkward. Well, I was going to ask him. I was like, "How mad were you when Brooke Hogan took herself off the Hogan estate?"
Oh, that's a good one.
If my wife was her dad was Hulk
that's
Hogan,
a black
I'm like, no.
I know.
I know. That Thunder in Paradise.
She just didn't want. It just got too gross. It got too just yuck. The whole thing got yuck, and I think she just wants to be with her husband or twins and just just have a nice life.
Yeah. Well, Steve made some good money probably in the NHL, so
I'm sure he's fine.
Yeah.
They're good.
But
she
still,
did well. She did well for herself too.
Hogan money, like
it's a different kind of money.
Although I think it's a big mess with
that's what I'm saying.
With the Gawker lawsuit and the ex.
Oh, give me 1% of American beer, man. I'll tell you. Give me 1% of it.
Yeah, I don't think that makes any money.
I don't know. I see guys drinking it. When I was in Georgia, they love it.
Yeah, I don't think.
That was cool, man. He's a really cool dude. I like his demeanor.
Yeah. Just the
very chill.
The
very smart.
Being a part of that family and having, and I wonder.
I wanted to say how many times he heard the word brother, but I didn't. Yeah.
Well, he said I guess he's only been a part of it for 6 years, so it's probably the tail end because Hogan died. Was it last year?
I think it was 2 years ago, maybe last year.
God, time goes by so fast. I'm not sure, but I think it was last year or 2 years ago. So it's probably. And then she had distanced herself from him way longer than that before that. So I don't know. Maybe Steve probably even never met Hulk Hogan. All questions I should ask them.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know. That
Well,
one is sticky because I mean, if we were like true like get it in there journalists, where we would ask those kind of questions.
sure
But
we
we've
can
never
talk to-
been the type of show to try and make people uncomfortable when they come on here. You know, it's
Well,
just not
it's
our
also
thing.
I don't want to interview him all about Hulk Hogan. You know, like he probably doesn't know anything about it. You know, it's like
Right.
there's a different phase of my wife's life after
Right.
when I met her or whatever. So, but anyway, we'll probably if he becomes mayor of Edgewater.
Oh, we'll have him in here all the time,
yeah.
and then we'll get we'll get Tuttle back to inflating things. Oh, buddy,
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
fun. That was cool. Thank you, Tuttle. We love you, buddy. Thanks for setting that up, man. That was fun.
All right, we will see you tomorrow.
I'm fighting for life, brother.